want to talk about how to dehydrate potatoes. So this is one of my favorite methods to actually storing potatoes from the garden long term. The reason for this is because I like quick and efficient ways to make food, and dehydrated potatoes are the way to go. So these are your classic Idaho mashed. It's actually a Canadian invention, I found out when I was researching for this video, so that's kind of fun. Now with that being said, these potatoes will be a little bit different than what you get at the store depending on how you process them. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. So first off, all you want to do is actually put the potatoes and boil them. Now you're probably thinking, Ashley, aren't you going to peel them? I'm going to show you how to peel them very efficiently in a little bit. What you want to do is you want to boil them until they're basically mush. Basically mush. The more mushy they are, the easier it's going to be for you to process these later on. After that's done, you can cut them in half to really make sure there's no peels in them. But if you don't mind a couple peels in your mashed potatoes, then just squish them through a cooling rack. A cookie cooling sheet is the best way to peel your potatoes efficiently. I saw this on TikTok and now I literally do it all the time. After you squish everything through the cookie sheet, you can place it in a blender or a food emulsion, whatever the case is, and you want to blend this mashed potato within an inch of its freaking life, I swear. The more you mash them in this initial process, the less gritty it will be when you go to cook them later on. If you don't like grit in your actual mash, then you really need to make sure you blend this up well. Unfortunately, my new blender I got, because I had a plastic one and I switched to glass because now I'm paranoid about plastic. It's a whole story. It broke. It was useless. The oyster, whatever it's called, it literally couldn't even do one round of potato. I think it made it like 5 minutes actually is what happened. So I ended up using a emulsion blender, which I mean, works-ish in this case. My Ninja that I used to have was made of plastic, but it did a really good job at blending these potatoes. And now I'm sad I gave it away. But again, it was plastic, so I'm not as sad about giving it away. I just won't be able to blend anything, I guess. So after you blend everything up, you're simply gonna place this on your dehydrator. Now, some people like to use a parchment paper or a silicone pad on their dehydrating racks for this. You can if you want to, you don't have to. And you're just gonna spread these on in a nice thin layer. From there, you're going to allow these to dehydrate until they basically make the equivalent of very dried out fruit roll-up taffy. So think of fruit roll-up that you left out and then you go to pick it up and it cracks like a piece of glass. That's what you want these potatoes to look like. Once that's done, usually around 12 hours at 150 degrees Fahrenheit, you can then pop these in a blender or again, some sort of food processor and grind it up into a fine powder. The same thing that you would do for like a tomato or any sort of paste that you're making with a dehydrator or powder you're making with a dehydrator, make it into a powder. From there, you can vacuum them inside of jars. You can put them into food saver bags, whatever the case is, for long-term storage. These are shelf stable. You could also store it in the freezer if you wanted to, if you're a little bit nervous about how well you dehydrated everything. But other than that, from there, after when you're ready to actually cook with this stuff, you're just going to simply add your butter and your milk and all your goodies into that actual blended powder and you'll be good to go. One thing I will say is you want to take note of how many meals you made with that initial batch. So look at the volume of potatoes that you have and say to yourself, how many meals are in this single bucket? And then divide that powder product up as needed. I hope you guys found this helpful. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments down below how you go about long-term potato storage.